This lighting feels really off and I don't know what it is about it, but we're just gonna go. Hello everyone, my name is Bill, I'm the author of Let's Burp and the upcoming Be Right Back, and I wanted to talk about today some things that I've learned, some things that surprised me that I didn't know about being an author. I've got about 10 here, and some of them are like relatively unconsequential, if that makes sense, but some of them are like really big and no one tells you, and I only like found out some of them after signing with an agency, but my first agency didn't tell me. It's a whole weird. It feels like really hush hush in this industry sometimes. So I wanted to share some of the things that I learned becoming an author, and I hope they're useful in some sense. Quite a few of these are going to like link up with being traditionally published, but there are definitely some that self-published authors are gonna feel and realize as well. But yes, this is kind of from the perspective of a traditionally published author. Is it the angle that's making this look weird? I feel like it is. Do I need to up this? Wait, I need to mess with this now. Ooh, yeah, shall I do it like this? I look like I'm in the new Blackpink music video. Now we're in the dark, okay. So I'm going to start with the first one because this is the one that shocked me the most, I think. Now, I signed with an agent first time around and I was never told this. It wasn't until I signed with my second agency for a whole plethora of reasons that I discovered this. So there's this thing in the UK, and yeah, I think it's just the UK, called Public Lending Right, which is a company that works with, I think, like British libraries. So British authors can get paid for every time their book's taken out of the library. Now, it's not like a crazy amount, of course. I think it's something like 11p per loan, something like that, so, like in that ballpark. I'll be getting my first payment next year, I believe, so I'm really intrigued to see what it's like. But it is a great website that I wasn't told about until after my book release, which I think is a little wild. And I made a TikTok about it, and a lot of authors didn't know about it either. So I feel like it's a very hush hush thing for some reason. I don't know why. I'll have to take a screenshot of like the dashboard so you can see. But at the moment, they've just updated stuff as well, so I can see how many times my books have been taken out throughout the year so far. It's like a provisional thing because obviously it will change. It's not the end of the year yet, and it will tell you like what regions it's been taken out, where it's been taken out the most, and it's really interesting. And I wish I knew about it sooner because it's really cool. I just broke my chair. Okay, so yes, this is only the UK and Ireland, I believe, but I'm sure there's like an equivalent in the US. There must be, right? There must be, probably. The second one is revolving around advances that authors get at with a publisher. This is going to be a loaded one because I knew what advances were. I didn't know like the extent of like how differing advances could be, because I've got friends who have had advances of £0 and then friends who had advances in like seven figures, like over 1 million. So it's like such a wild range of figure. And you'd think like the amount of advance that you got obviously is showing like how much the publisher believes in this book, but it also doesn't necessarily equate to marketing, because I've got friends who have had 7-figure book deals and they're like, my marketing's really not that great. So it's such a weird thing, and I really don't get it. But why I wanted to talk about advances is also because of taxes, because I had to do my first ever self-employment tax last year, and oh my gosh, it's confusing. I think so. I had to hire an accountant because I had no idea what I was doing. But basically, it's so strange because obviously advances come in installments. So it's literally stressing me out thinking about it, because it comes in installments. Your salary goes up and down every year and it's never going to be the same. So it was really strange trying to communicate with my accountant about what that meant, and like, yeah, my salary is going to be so up and down and strange over the next couple of years. And it's like a conversation that I don't think he'd ever have because he's never dealt with it. So yeah, it's very weird and no one tells you about that. But yeah, the money side of being an author is really weird. And also, like, not every author, like best-selling author, is ridiculously rich either. I think that's a huge misconception. The next one, I knew about this because I'd self-published, but yeah, reviews for most people, I think, are a no-go. For me, I just don't have the bandwidth to read like a negative or like slightly critical review and like be sane after it. I really it's not, constructive criticism is not the same thing, because I've done beta, I've obviously worked with editors tons. I think it's when people are just like inherently mean in a review, and I just can't read that. So if you are an author, don't read a review even when you're tagged in it. It's really scary because I've been tagged in a plenty of negative reviews, and you're just like, why would you tag the author in this? And there's a difference between pointing out stuff that's potentially harmful in a book, then yes, probably tag the author. But if it's like just because you didn't like the book, I think that's a thing. Don't tag the author. I think that's well enough known now. Don't tag the author. Also, after becoming an author, another point, you start to like, especially now that I've written so many books and it's just like become kind of second nature for me, you start to consume media, read books, watch films in such a different light, a more critical light, which is both good and bad. I think because I also am a screenwriter, it's become a really weird thing because I find it really difficult to watch a movie without trying to work out how I would fix things that I don't like about it, if that makes sense. And I really can't switch it off unless it's like something like I've loved for years, and but like I was rewatching stuff with my little brother recently, and it was just I couldn't push that aside. I was like, oh my gosh, if they'd only done this with this character, and then they could have done and it's really annoying. And it's not annoying just for you, but it's annoying for other people if you're like talking out loud. Which leads me on to another point, is that readers will notice things that you don't. I think with it being like taking so long for you to write a book, and then you go through so many rounds of edits, by the time it actually releases, you don't want to read that again. So you're going to forget things, and readers will not. So they're going to start questioning. I've done it panels before, and they've asked me questions about the book, and I'm like, in all honesty, I cannot remember what you're talking about. And it's strange because you spent years writing this book, but as soon as like you've finished it, the last thing you want to do is go back and subject yourself to, because reading your own work is already hard enough, but it's just after reading it, like I've probably read my books 20 plus times in my life, and if I hadn't had a sequel, I probably wouldn't have read it again for a really long time. Speaking of sequels, second book syndrome is real. I think I kind of looked out with it being a sequel that I was already in the zone. I knew the characters, so I didn't feel as much pressure. And actually there was a pressure, but I don't know, I didn't find it as hard to write. But now writing stuff outside of that series, I really feel it. Even though it's not technically my second book, it kind of is, because it's like out of, does that make sense? It's really hard. I think it's all down to obviously pressures from readers, like whether or not they're going to like it, whether or not it feels right as like a successor to a book that perhaps has done well, which in my case it has. Every author is gonna feel, unless you're some like crazy talented person, which every author's a very talented person, but it's one of it's really hard to describe. And I really thought that, oh, maybe it's just like it's not real, like second book syndrome is just like a thing people say for when they don't really like a sequel, but I'm really feeling it, and a lot of authors that I speak to do feel it too, so I'm clearly not alone. Again, kind of linking with second books, is you kind of forget everything. And I mean this in the sense that I was rereading my second book recently for the last time before it goes to print later this month, and I get to go to the printers this month and sign stuff, which is really exciting. I never got to go to the printers first time, but anyway, I was rereading it for the final time. I was on holiday, and I was reading sentences, and I was like, did I write this? And you're gonna feel that in both positive and like very harrowing ways, because sometimes you'll read a sentence like, oh my god, why did I write that? Why did I structure it like that? Blah 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 blah. But then sometimes you'll write a sentence and you're like, wow, did I just write that? And you and it's really because, like, especially I will have the odd day when I just bang out 5,000 plus words, and that's kind of the day when you're on autopilot, you don't even realize what you're writing. And sometimes that's when you make the best stuff, but you're also not really conscious when you're writing it. So when you do go back, you're like, wow, I do not remember this, but I love it. Another thing that I didn't really know, and things that surprised me, is it's really easy, I think, to make friends with other authors. I thought, I don't know, I think before I already knew of authors and were like acquaintances with authors because I had like a somewhat social media presence before. But authors are just, most authors at least, I mean, there's going to be the odd few that aren't, but most authors are literally the loveliest people and will want to talk to you, want to help you in the industry if they're a bit more experienced. And yeah, it's one of those things where I've never really felt not welcomed by the community. Obviously, there's going to be times where your mind's convincing you that, like, oh my gosh, why are you here? That's like sort of imposter syndrome. That never goes away. But those friendships you really make, at least in my experience, I've made friendships with a lot of people. And I don't go to a ton of events. I'm not in London where most of them are. But even when I do, I'm really easy to find people, like-minded people, and that's just really nice, which in turn makes it a lot easier to get blurbs from other authors, which I thought was going to be really difficult. And I didn't realize it's kind of on you. It's not always the case, because my publicist is always sometimes like will offer to like reach out to people, but a lot of the time it's on your merit, you speaking, trying to make friendships with these authors, and then perhaps like exchanging blurbs for each other. That's kind of how that works. Or then sometimes you do cold email an author and try and get a blurb from them, but it's all dependent on schedules. And then another type of blurb, so we've got author blurbs who are like quoting and giving you quotes for endorsement quotes for the books, but then there's the blurb that you have to write for the back of the book. It is harder than writing the book, in my opinion. I think it's so difficult to try and, what's the word, like condense that into like however long a blurb is. It is really difficult, and I know I'm not alone, because I saw a TikTok about it earlier today, but it is really one of those things where I think as an author, when you're writing the story, everything in that story feels important to you. So missing stuff out is hard to do. But then I think it's also like the art of the blurb. I read a book recently where I read the blurb, I was like, this sounds great. And then I'm reading the book, and the blurb describes up until like the halfway point, which in my opinion is a bit much, because it, like the first half of the book then kind of feels redundant, like you know what's going to happen. So yeah, the art of the blurb. My publisher definitely helps with this, because like actually every publisher is going to help. They're going to help you get the perfect blurb, because it's what is like the first thing that people read when they want to read a book, right? But writing that initial blurb, trying to get like it down, is really hard, and I don't think that's ever going to get easier. And then I'm going to finish on this one, because this is one I feel like everyone can relate to as well. Launch day is literally the craziest day of mixed emotions. It's scary as hell, but also so exciting for so many reasons. You're obviously so excited because the book's out. You're like, the book you spent years on is finally out in the world. People are going to read it. But then also you're terrified for that exact same reason. I think when my book Let's Book came out last September, I was just a wreck in so many different ways, because I was in London the day before, going around signing copies that had come into store early. And then I was staying in London that night by myself. I wasn't going to meet my family until the next day. I was going to have my launch party on that night. And it was just so strange, because I was just trying to be excited, but then I was still having to work by going to sign stuff. And it was really exciting, but then I was meeting family, and we were like just going for lunch and being really nonchalant. And it was just so like, I didn't know how to feel. And I don't know, it's weird. But then also, when you're, especially if you have an event on the day, I found it really helps forget about that stuff, if that makes sense, because you're so my launch was quite extravagant. We did a really cool launch at this old cinema. We did a signing of the book. I did a talk with my friend Andy Darcy Theo, author of The Light That Blinds Us. Go buy it, it's incredible. And then there was also a screening of I Know What You Did Last Summer. So it was really fun. It all fed into the book, but there was like 100 people there, I would say, and it was just, I think I was so then invested in trying to made sure everyone had a good time, and I was communicating with everyone and speaking to them at this launch, that the idea of them having to read the book then kind of flew out of my mind. So it was really strange, and I'm rambling, but it's my last point, so who cares? But yeah, those are some things that I've learned since being an author, some things that surprised me, some things that I just didn't know, and I feel like people should know, because being an author is kind of a demanding job at sometimes, and then sometimes you're not doing anything. So that's life. But I hope this video helped you out, perhaps. Please like, subscribe, click the bell. What else can you do? Comment? Yeah, comment please. That helps with engagement. And if you're in the US, my book Let's Up is coming out on September 2nd. It's so close. You can get a really cool sprayed edge edition if you pre-order now, wherever you want. It's the first print edition. All has the sprayed edge. And then my sequel, Be Right Back, is out in the UK October 9th, which is really scary. And then next March in the US as well. So that's me. I hope you enjoyed this video, and I will see you soon. If you have any more video ideas, please let me know, because I'm kind of running out of ideas. Just saying. Okay. Thanks for watching.